The void did not scream. It did not tremble. It simply ceased to be. There was no ground beneath Son Goku's feet, only an infinite expanse of gold and obsidian, a dimension that existed before the concept of time had been woven into the fabric of the multiverse. The Saiyan floated there, his body wreathed in the ethereal perfect silver of mastered Ultra Instinct. His eyes were calm, devoid of thought, reacting to the threat before him with a speed that transcended the nerves, a speed that rivaled the angels. But for the first time since the Tournament of Power, for the first time since he had surpassed the gods of destruction, the silver light of his soul was flickering. He was not fighting a warrior. He was standing before an architect. The being known as Zalama did not tower over him in physical size, yet his presence felt heavier than the combined mass of all 12 universes. His skin was the texture of ancient parchment and starlight, his eyes holding the vertical slit of a dragon, burning with a golden luminescence that made the Super Dragon Balls look like mere sparks. He did not move with the aggression of Jiren or the playfulness of Whis. He moved with the inevitability of entropy. Goku's body moved on its own. The silver aura flared, a supernova of instinctual defense. He launched a strike, a punch capable of shaking the world of void aimed directly at the entity's chest. It was a blow that carried the weight of every limit Goku had ever broken. Zalama did not dodge. He did not block. He simply raised one finger. The contact made no sound. There was no shockwave. Instead, reality seemed to fold inward. Goku's fist, wrapped in the power of angels, stopped instantly. The momentum died not because of resistance, but because Zalama willed the kinetic energy to simply vanish. The Dragon God looked down at the Saiyan, his expression unreadable, ancient, and terrifyingly serene. He reached out his other hand, his fingers brushing against Goku's forehead. "I did not come to kill you, Son Goku." Zalama's voice resonated, not in the air, but directly inside the marrow of Goku's bones. "But to test you." With a single touch, the silver light shattered. It didn't fade. It broke like glass. The calmness of Ultra Instinct was violently ripped away, leaving Goku gasping, his eyes wide with a mortal terror he hadn't felt since he was a child. The divine technique was dismantled, not by force, but by authority. The God of Dragons had not just defeated the form, he had revoked Goku's permission to use it. Before the dragon's jaw closes and the test of eons begins, bind your energy to this chronicle. Subscribe now so this timeline does not fade into the silence of the void. The sound of shattering glass echoed not in the air, but in the soul. It was a sharp, dissonant chime that signaled the end of perfection. Son Goku fell. He did not fall through the sky, for there was no sky here. He plummeted through layers of compressed reality, his body tumbling through a golden mist that tasted of ozone and ancient dust. The silver aura that had defined his peak, the technique of the angels that had forced the multiverse to its knees, flaked away from his skin like dry paint in a hurricane. It didn't just fade, it was rejected. The calmness of his heart was replaced by a frantic, thundering rhythm, the panicked drumbeat of a mortal man realizing he was suddenly, violently naked before a predator. Goku slammed onto a surface that felt like polished obsidian, the impact reverberating through his spine. He gasped, his lungs burning as they tried to draw in air that was too thick, too rich with raw existence. He scrambled to his hands and knees, his fingers scraping against the dark floor. His eyes, no longer silver but their natural deep onyx, darted around wildly. The sensory overload was blinding. The atmosphere here was heavy, pressing down on his shoulders with a weight that made the gravity training on King Kai's planet feel like a gentle breeze. My power, Goku wheezed, his voice sounding small in the infinite expanse. He clenched his fists, instinctively reaching for the wellspring of energy deep within his gut. He tried to ignite the golden flame of the Super Saiyan, to force his body into a state of combat readiness. Nothing happened. There was no spark, no roar, no golden aura erupting to push back the darkness. It was as if the concept of a Super Saiyan had never been invented. He tried to tap into God Ki, to find that serene blue ocean he had learned to swim in under Whis tutelage. It was gone. The connection was severed. leaving him with only the meager, flickering candlelight of his base form. He was not a god here. He was not a warrior. He was just a biological organism occupying space. Stop struggling, Son Goku, the voice returned, vibrating through the floor, traveling up through Goku's arms and into his chest. You are trying to light a match inside a hurricane. The physics of the lower realms do not apply in the dragon's court. Goku looked up, sweat stinging his eyes. Zalama stood 10 meters away, floating slightly above the obsidian ground. The dragon god had not moved. His robes, woven from what looked like liquid nebula, flowed around him in a wind that Goku could not feel. The golden slits of his eyes narrowed, observing the Saiyan with a clinical curiosity. You. Who are you? Goku managed to choke out, forcing himself to stand despite the crushing pressure. His legs shook, but he locked his knees. Even without his power, the instinct to stand tall remained. You shattered Ultra Instinct. Like it was nothing. Ultra Instinct, Zalama repeated, the words rolling off his tongue with a tone of mild amusement. A state of mind designed by the angels to bypass the limitations of thought. A beautiful trick. It allows the body to react before the soul can interfere. But here, in the place where desires are forged, the soul is the only thing that matters. To move without thought here is to cease to exist. Zalama descended, his feet touching the ground without a sound. The golden light radiating from his skin pulsed in time with the universe's heartbeat. He walked toward Goku, and with every step the pressure increased. It wasn't killing intent. It was the sheer density of his existence pushing against Goku's fragile reality. I am Zalama, he said, the name carrying the weight of a law of physics. I am the one who dreamed the first dream. I am the architect of the wish. And you, Saiyan, are a thief. Goku blinked, confusion warring with the fear. A thief? I've never stolen anything. I fight to protect my universe. You steal limitlessness. Zalama corrected gently, stopping just an arm's length away. The heat coming off him was intense, smelling of sulfur and starlight. You mortals begged the dragons for wishes. You asked for youth, for life, for panties, for restored planets. You treat the Dragon Balls as tools, as shortcuts to rewrite the consequences of your actions. And when the balls are not enough, you steal from the gods. You mimicked the Kais. You mimicked the Destroyers. You mimicked the Angels. You are a patchwork of stolen divinities, Son Goku. Take them all away. And what is left? Goku stared at him, his breath hitching. The accusation struck deeper than any physical blow. He had spent his life learning from others. Roshi, Korin, Kami, Kinkai, Whis. His power was a tapestry woven from their teachings. Zalama raised a hand, his long, clawed fingers hovering over Goku's chest. If I forbid you from transforming, if I forbid you from reacting without thought, if I strip away the borrowed robes of the gods, tell me, Son Goku, who are you? The question hung in the silence, heavy and suffocating. Goku opened his mouth to answer, to say, I am a Saiyan from Earth, but the words died in his throat. Without his ki, without the ability to fight, the definition felt hollow. Zalama's eyes flashed. Let us see if there is anything real underneath the costumes. The dragon god snapped his fingers. The obsidian floor beneath them dissolved into liquid, and Goku fell again, screaming as he plunged into a darkness deeper than the void, a darkness that wasn't empty, but filled with the terrifying roar of a billion unanswered prayers. The darkness was not empty. It was heavy, viscous, and terribly, deafeningly loud. Goku was drowning, but not in water. He was submerged in a churning ocean of voices. As he thrashed, his limbs heavy as lead, the liquid forced its way into his ears, carrying with it the desperate screams of a billion souls. He heard a mother on a dying planet begging for rain. He heard a tyrant demanding immortality. He heard Krillin's voice from Namek, wishing for revival. He heard his own voice, younger and naive, wishing for the earth to be restored. It was a river of pure, distilled desire, the runoff of every wish ever made and every wish ever denied. Goku kicked his Saiyan physiology, screaming for oxygen, but there was no up or down here. The pressure crushed his ribs. He tried to flare his ki, to create a barrier, but the spiritual energy inside him was dormant, locked away by Zalama's touch. Panic, cold and sharp, began to seize him. For a warrior who had exchanged blows with gods of destruction, this was a different kind of helplessness. He couldn't punch a voice. He couldn't blast away a memory. Just as his vision began to gray, the current shifted. The liquid solidified, expelling him violently. Goku gasped, his body slamming onto a shore of gray, shifting ash. He retched, coughing up not water, but wisps of silver smoke that dissipated into the twilight air. He lay there for a long moment, his chest heaving, his gi soaked in the strange, shimmering residue of the river. Pathetic. The word was spoken softly, but it hit Goku like a stone. He forced himself up, his arms trembling. Zalama was standing on the shore, looking out over the black ocean. The dragon god's back was turned, his hands clasped behind him in a posture of absolute serenity. Is this... Goku wiped his mouth, struggling to find his footing on the shifting ash. Is this hell? Zalama turned slowly, his golden eyes glowing in the dim light. Hell is a place of punishment for sins. This is the graveyard of intent. This is where desires go when they are too weak to manifest. He gestured to the black ocean. You survived the immersion only because your will to live is stubborn. But you are still blind, Son Goku. You look for an enemy to fight. You look for a wall to break. That is the tragedy of your existence. Goku gritted his teeth, a flash of his old defiance returning. He stood up straight, clenching his fists. I don't know what you're talking about. I've broken every wall put in front of me. Jiren, Broly, Moro. I defeated them all. I got stronger because I had to. Exactly, Zalama said, his voice dropping to a dangerous whisper. Because you had to. The dragon god took a step forward, and the ash beneath his feet turned into solid gold where he stepped. Your strength is reactive, Saiyan. You are a mirror. You only shine when a fire is placed before you. If there is no villain, no threat, no crisis, your power stagnates. You wait for the universe to challenge you. Zalama raised a single finger, pointing directly at Goku's heart. But a dragon does not wait. A dragon does not react. A dragon wills. When Shenron grants a wish, he imposes a new reality upon the old one. He does not fight physics. He commands them. You have spent your life mastering the art of destruction, of breaking limits, but you have no idea how to create. Goku stared at him, confused and frustrated. The philosophy was flying over his head, but the insults stung. I'm a fighter. That's who I am. I protect people. Then protect yourself from this. Zalama didn't attack. He didn't fire a beam of energy. He simply looked at a small gray stone resting on the ash between them. Move that stone, Zalama commanded. Do not touch it. Do not use the wind. Do not throw a rock at it. Use your will. If you are a god, if you are truly divine, command the stone to move. Goku blinked. It seemed like a parlor trick. He focused. He reached deep inside, trying to summon the telekinesis he had seen Frieza or Piccolo use. He strained, veins popping on his forehead, his face turning red with exertion. He visualized the stone lifting. He poured every ounce of his mental focus into that small gray rock. The stone did not move, it did not even tremble. Seconds stretched into minutes. The silence of the dimension was humiliating. Goku, the man who could shake the world a void just by walking, stood there, sweating, defeated by a pebble. You see, Zalama said, his voice devoid of mockery, filled only with a terrible pity. You are powerless. Without ki to burn, without a body to break, you are empty. You cannot command the smallest atom of this realm because you do not understand the nature of power. You only understand the nature of force. Goku dropped to his knees, exhausted by the mental strain. He stared at the stone, his breathing ragged. He felt small, smaller than he had ever felt even when he was a child looking up at the moon. "You stripped my key," Goku whispered, looking at his trembling hands. "That's cheating. I stripped your crutch," Zalama corrected. The dragon god turned away, walking toward a towering mountain range in the distance that seemed to be made of solidified thunderclouds. "If you wish to leave this place, Son Goku, you must stop being a Saiyan. You must stop reacting to the world and start making the world react to you." Zalama paused, looking back over his shoulder. "Follow me, or stay here and drown in the voices of things that never were. The choice is the first true action you will take." The dragon god walked on, leaving Goku kneeling in the ash, the silence of the void pressing against his ears, the immovable stone mocking him from the ground. For the first time in his life, Goku wasn't sure if he could stand back up. Goku stared at the stone. It was jagged, ugly, and utterly insignificant. A child could kick it across a street. A gentle breeze could roll it over. But to Son Goku, stripped of his divine aura and his explosive energy, it was an immovable mountain. He reached out with a trembling hand and poked it. The stone rolled over easily, crunching softly against the ash. The physical act felt hollow. It was a cheat. Zalama had not asked him to move it with his finger. He had asked him to move it with his truth. By touching it, Goku realized he had only proven the dragon god's point. Without his body, without the physical application of force, he was Ghost. He was a man who had spent 40 years screaming at the universe to make it listen, never realizing he could have simply whispered, "I am not a thief." Goku muttered to the ash, the words tasting like iron. "I worked for everything." But the silence of the dimension swallowed his protest. There was no audience here to cheer for the underdog. There was only the retreating back of the golden god. Goku stood up, his knees cracked, protesting the heaviness of the realm. He took a breath, filling his lungs with the stale, electrically charged air, and began to walk. He didn't run, he didn't have the energy to sprint, but he marched with a grim, plodding determination. He followed the footprints Zalama left in the gold-dusted ash, each step a reminder of the gap between them. As he walked, the landscape began to shift. The gray shore of the graveyard of intent gave way to a terrain that defied geometry. Massive pillars of crystalline light pierced the sky, suspending floating islands of rock and water that flowed upward. The air grew warmer, humming with a low, resonant vibration that rattled Goku's teeth. It felt like standing inside the bell of a giant trumpet just after it had been struck. He caught up to Zalama at the base of a colossal staircase carved directly into the side of a nebula. The dragon god stopped, waiting without turning around. "You followed," Zalama said. "Good. Curiosity is the seed of all wishes." "I didn't follow because I'm curious," Goku said, wiping sweat from his brow. He stood beside the deity, looking up at the impossible staircase that seemed to lead into the heart of a dying star. "I followed because I don't know how to go home. And because you're right." Zalama turned, his reptilian eyes widening slightly. "Oh." Goku looked at his hands, the calloused, scarred hands of a martial artist. "I tried to move that rock. I tried to push my feelings into it, but there was nothing there. Just noise. I realized I've always used my ki like a hammer. I just hit things harder until they break. I don't know how to build. Admission is the death of the ego," Zalama said, a faint, terrifying smile touching his lips. "And the ego must die if the dragon is to wake." Zalama gestured up the stairs. "We are leaving the graveyard. Above us lies the archive of rejected possibilities. It is there that your true test begins. You will not learn to fight there, Son Goku. You already know how to fight. There, you will learn to mean." "To mean?" Goku asked, the concept alien to him. "A punch is just physics," Zalama said, beginning to ascend the stairs. "A wish is reality rewritten. If you want to defeat me, if you want to leave this place, you must learn to make your fist strike with the weight of a wish. You must strike with consequence." Goku looked up at the long climb. His body felt heavy, mortal, and weak. He missed the silver light. He missed the effortless speed of Ultra Instinct. But as he looked at the ancient, golden back of the dragon god. A new fire began to kindle in his gut, not the explosive rage of a Super Saiyan, but the cold, stubborn resolve of a student who had just realized he knew nothing. He took the first step. The silver aura was gone. The gods were far away. The Saiyan was dead. What remained was just Goku, and for the first time in a long time, that had to be enough. The ascent took hours, or perhaps years. Time in the dragon's realm was not measured in ticks of a clock, but in the rhythm of breaths. By the time Goku reached the top of the nebula-carved staircase, his legs were burning with a fatigue he hadn't felt since he carried milk crates for Master Roshi. He collapsed onto the landing, gasping for air. But as he lifted his head, the exhaustion was momentarily forgotten. They stood on a floating plateau of translucent jade, suspended in the center of a cosmic storm. But it wasn't the storm that caught Goku's attention. It was the statues. Thousands of them. Stretching out as far as the eye could see were towering figures made of gray, lifeless stone. They were grotesque, beautiful, terrifying, and sad. Some looked like demons with 100 arms. Others looked like perfect geometric shapes. Some were vague, shifting forms that hurt the eyes to look at. They stood frozen in dynamic poses, mid-scream, mid-flight, mid-prayer. What are they? Goku whispered, pulling himself to his feet. He felt a strange kinship with the silent giants. They are the prototypes, Zalama answered, walking through the garden of stone figures, his hand brushing against the leg of a petrified leviathan. Before a wish can be granted, it must be understood. When a mortal speaks to Shenron or Purunga, the dragon does not just hear words. It sees the image of the desire in the mortal's heart. These, Zalama tapped the stone statue of a warrior who looked like he was weeping. These are the desires that were too broken to be born. The wishes that were spoken with doubt. The prayers that lacked conviction. Goku walked up to a statue of a woman holding a child. The detail was exquisite, but the face was blank, smooth, and featureless. Why are we here? Goku asked. I thought you were going to teach me how to use this willpower stuff. I cannot teach you, Zalama said, stopping in the center of a circle of statues. I am the architect, not the teacher. The lesson is in the environment. Zalama turned to Goku, his expression hardening. You are accustomed to fighting opponents who want to kill you, opponents who project killing intent. It is easy to react to malice. It is easy to dodge a bullet. The dragon god snapped his fingers. Immediately, the eyes of the 1,000 statues ignited with a dull, crimson light. The ground rumbled. The jade plateau began to crack. These prototypes are not alive, Zalama explained, his voice echoing over the grinding stone. They possess no ki. They possess no souls. They are animated only by unfinished desire. They are heavy with the weight of things that never happened. One of the statues, a 4-armed beast made of gray rock, lunged at Goku. Goku's instincts flared. He pivoted, expecting a shockwave, a rush of air, a spike in power level. But there was nothing. The statue moved with zero presence. It was a void in the sensory field. Because it had no ki, Goku couldn't sense it coming. The stone fist connected with Goku's jaw with the force of a falling mountain. Crack! Goku was sent skidding across the jade floor, blood spraying from his lip. He tumbled, recovering quickly, his eyes wide. I couldn't sense it! He panicked. It's like fighting a ghost. They have no ki to sense. Zalama shouted over the rising roar of the awakening army. You cannot read their movements with your spirit. You cannot predict them with ultra instinct. They are not attacking you, they are simply trying to exist where you are standing. 3 more statues rushed him, a serpent, a knight, and a shapeless mass of spikes. Goku scrambled back, raising his guard. He tried to rely on his eyes, on pure reflex, but without the ki enhancement he had used since childhood, his body felt sluggish. He ducked under the knight's swing, but the serpent's tail whipped around and slammed into his ribs. Goku grunted, falling to one knee. Think, Goku, think! He couldn't blast them away. He couldn't power up. He was a martial artist, fighting an avalanche. Don't look at their fists. Zalama's voice cut through the chaos. Look at their intent! A wish has a shape before it has a form. Feel what they want. Goku barely rolled out of the way of a crushing stomp. I don't know what that means, he yelled back, desperate. Then you will be crushed by the failures of the past, Zalama said coldly, crossing his arms and watching. If you cannot feel the will of a stone, how do you expect to challenge a god? The circle closed in. 100 gray bodies, heavy with the sadness of forgotten wishes, descended upon the lone Saiyan. Goku raised his fists, bloody and shaking, preparing for a beatdown unlike any he had ever received. The beatdown was not elegant. It was a massacre. There was no choreography to the violence, no martial rhythm of block counter-strike. It was simply an avalanche of cold, heavy hatred burying a single man. A fist made of granite, shaped like a weeping executioner, slammed into Goku's shoulder, dislocating it with a sickening wet pop. Before he could scream, a knee of jagged obsidian drove the air from his stomach. Goku hit the jade floor, rolling instinctively to minimize the damage. But there was no safety. The prototypes swarmed him like ants on a fallen beetle. They didn't fight with technique. They fought with the desperate, mindless urgency of things that wanted to be real. They clawed at his gi, stomped on his limbs, and hammered his back with blows that would have pulverized a normal planet. Is this the limit? Zalama's voice drifted through the chaos, calm and detached. Is Son Goku nothing more than a collection of reflexes? Goku gritted his teeth, blood painting them red. Move! He commanded his body. Pop the shoulder back in. He slammed his injured shoulder against the floor, forcing the joint back into the socket with a roar of pain. Adrenaline, the last fuel he had left, flooded his system. He kicked upward, catching a stone serpent under its chin. The blow connected solid bone against rock. The serpent didn't even flinch. Goku's eyes widened. His kick, which had once dented the armor of Frieza, was meaningless here. The statue simply absorbed the kinetic energy and slammed its tail down, pinning Goku to the ground. You are fighting physics, Zalama scolded, his voice sharpening. You are trying to break the stone! Stop it! You cannot break a concept with your knuckles! Goku struggled under the weight, his vision blurring. Then, how? He wheezed. They don't feel like anything. Because you are listening for the hum of life. Zalama stepped closer, unbothered by the violence swirling around him. You listen for ki. You listen for the breath. But these things do not breathe. They crave. Stop listening with your ears, Saiyan. Listen with your hunger. Listen with my hunger? Goku's head swam. The weight on his chest was crushing his ribs. The darkness was closing in. He was going to die here, beaten to death by statues in a forgotten corner of existence. Hunger. He closed his eyes. It was suicide in a battle, but his eyes were useless anyway. He shut out the sight of the gray stone. He shut out the pain radiating from his shoulder. He forced himself to ignore the lack of ki. He reached down, past the reservoir of energy that was currently dry, into the deepest part of his soul. What was down there? I want to win. I want to survive. I want to be strong. He felt his own desire. It was a hot, burning coal in his gut. It felt heavy. It felt like gravity. And then he felt an echo. It wasn't a sound. It was a pull. Above him, the stone serpent pinning him down didn't feel like a rock anymore. It felt like a desperate, screaming need for constriction. It was a solidified wish to squeeze the life out of something. To his left, he felt a sharp, piercing spike of intent, a wish to puncture. To his right, a dull, heavy throb, a wish to flatten. They weren't invisible anymore. In the darkness of his mind, the gray statues lit up like flares. They were burning constellations of raw want. I see them! Goku realized, the thought hitting him with the force of a lightning bolt. They aren't moving. They're wishing. The wish to puncture spiked. Goku didn't wait for the physical movement. He reacted to the spike of intent. He rolled to the right a split second before a stone spear shattered the jade floor exactly where his head had been. The serpent pressed down, its intent to constrict intensifying. Goku didn't push back against the weight. He pushed back against the intent. He projected his own desire freedom outward. For a second, the reality of the dimension flickered. The stone serpent didn't break, but it shuddered, repelled not by muscle, but by the sudden, violent expansion of Goku's will. The weight lifted just an inch. That inch was enough. Goku slid out from underneath the beast, scrambling to his feet. He kept his eyes closed. The world around him was a terrifying web of red lines, each one representing a vector of incoming pain. A hammer swung for his head, a wish to break. Goku ducked. The wind of the swing ruffled his hair. A claw swiped at his chest, a wish to tear. Goku twisted his torso, the stone tip grazing his gi but missing his skin. He was moving, he was dodging, he wasn't using Ultra Instinct. His body wasn't reacting on autopilot. This was active, conscious, and excruciatingly difficult. He was reading the emotional trajectory of every attack before it manifested physically. He was dancing through a storm of rejected prayers. Zalama watched, his golden eyebrows raising a fraction of an inch. He learns quickly, the dragon god murmured. But dodging is merely survival. A dragon does not just survive the storm. He becomes it. Goku spun away from a massive, four-armed golem. He was breathing hard, a smile tugging at the corner of his bloody lip. He could feel it now. The willpower key. It wasn't energy he drew from nature. It was energy he generated from his own stubborn refusal to lose. He opened his eyes. The gray statues looked different now. They didn't look like monsters. They looked sad. They were incomplete. You guys are just unfinished business, aren't you? Goku said softly, wiping blood from his chin. He stepped into a stance, not the turtle hermit style, not the Whis style. He planted his feet wide, his hands open, palms facing out. He wasn't preparing to hit them, he was preparing to reject them. Come on, Goku shouted, his voice echoing through the archive. Let me show you what a real wish looks like. The army roared, a sound of grinding tectonic plates, and surged forward as one. The wave of gray stone crashed down. To an observer, it would have looked like a man being buried alive. 100 tons of animated rock fists, claws, teeth, and weapons converged on a single point. There was no space to dodge. There was no time to weave. The geometry of the attack was perfect, a suffocating sphere of violence designed to crush existence itself. But Goku was no longer observing the rock, he was observing the desire. They want to occupy this space, he thought, the realization sharp and cold in his mind. They want to be real. They want me gone so they can exist. In that split second, time seemed to dilate. Goku didn't reach for his ki. He didn't tighten his muscles to brace for impact. Instead, he reached for that stubborn, unyielding core of his being, the part of him that had refused to die against King Piccolo, the part that had refused to stay down against Jiren. He projected a single deafening thought outward. I am here. It wasn't a shout of vocal cords. It was a shout of existence. Boom! There was no flash of light. No golden explosion. Instead, the air around Goku distorted violently, like a heat mirage snapping into solidity. The leading edge of the stone army, the fists and claws inches from his skin, didn't hit him. They hit his refusal. The impact was sickening. The statues didn't break. They shattered. The golem's arm disintegrated into dust, not because Goku punched it, but because Goku's will to exist was simply denser than the golem's will to crush him. The willpower acted like a physical barrier, a sphere of absolute rejection. The shockwave of pure intent blasted outward, throwing the front line of the prototypes backward as if they had been hit by a wrecking ball. Goku stood in the center of the clearing, his arms lowered, his chest heaving. Blood dripped from his nose, staining the jade floor. His head felt like it was splitting open. Using this power wasn't like burning calories. It was like burning his own memories. He felt lighter, hollower, as if he had spent a piece of his soul to push the world away. Goku wheezed, his vision swimming. He looked at his hands. They were trembling uncontrollably. I pushed them back, without touching them. The remaining statues hesitated. For the first time, the hunger radiating from them was replaced by something else. Hesitation. Zalama began to clap. It was a slow, rhythmic sound that cut through the tension. The dragon god walked through the ranks of the confused statues, which parted for him like water. Crude, Zalama said, stopping a few feet from Goku. Messy. Inefficient. You shouted so loud you nearly tore your own mind apart. He looked down at the Saiyan, his golden eyes softening just a fraction. But you did not use your fists. You used your truth. You have taken the first step from warrior to creator. Zalama waved his hand, and the army of prototypes dissolved into mist, their unfinished wishes returning to the ether. The oppressive weight of the archive lifted. But do not mistake this for mastery, Zalama warned, turning his gaze to the sky above. You used your will to reject reality. That is the power of a child throwing a tantrum. No. It is the simplest word. To defeat what comes next, you will need to learn to say yes. Goku fell to his knees, catching himself on his palms. What comes next? He panted, the metallic taste of mental exhaustion filling his mouth. Reconstruction, Zalama said. You have dismantled your reliance on the gods. You have awakened the voice of your soul. Now, we must build a vessel capable of holding it. Because right now, Son Goku. Zalama pointed to Goku's chest, where his heart beat frantically against his ribs. Your mortal body is far too small for the dragon you are trying to become. The transition was instantaneous. One moment, they were in the archive of rejected possibilities. The next, they were standing in a place of blinding, serene white. There was no floor, no horizon, no sky. It was reminiscent of the hyperbolic time chamber. But where that place felt empty, this place felt full. The white air hummed with potential. It felt like a blank canvas waiting for paint. Goku lay on his back, staring up into the infinite white. His body ached in a way that had nothing to do with lactic acid. His very essence felt bruised. Get up! Zalama's voice echoed from everywhere at once. Goku groaned, rolling onto his stomach and pushing himself up. Give me a minute. My head is spinning. You do not have a minute. Eternity is collapsing around the edges, Zalama said. The dragon god was seated in midair, his legs crossed, floating in a meditative pose. You have learned to project your will, but you are still trying to fuel it with your Saiyan biology. You are trying to run a starship on gasoline. Goku sat up, wiping the dried blood from his face. So, what do I do? You took my key away. I suppressed your access to the external flow, Zalama corrected. You Saiyans! You are biological batteries. You eat, you sleep, you train, you build up reserves of energy, and then you fire it out of your hands. It is a finite loop. When the battery is empty, you lose. Zalama uncrossed his legs and drifted closer. But a god, a true god, not the pretenders who wear the title like a badge, does not have a battery. A god is a conduit. We do not store power. We are the flow. Goku frowned, trying to grasp the concept. Like tapping into a river. No, Zalama said sharply. You are not a bucket dipping into the river. You must become the riverbed. You must let the universe flow through you, shaped by your will. The dragon god extended a hand. A small orb of light appeared in his palm. It wasn't ki. It looked like pure, liquid reality. To do this, you must answer the question I asked you at the beginning. The question you failed to answer. Zalama's eyes bored into Goku's. If you could not wish for strength, who would you be? Why do you fight, Son Goku? And do not tell me to protect. Protection is a reaction to a threat. If there were no threats, what would you do? Goku fell silent. He looked down at his hands. Why did he fight? To get stronger. That was always the answer. To test his limits. To see how far he could go. But why? Was it just addiction? Was it just Saiyan instinct? I fight. Goku started, his voice hesitant. Because it's fun. Zalama didn't blink. Fun is fleeting. A child plays for fun. Are you a child? I fight because I want to see what's out there. Goku tried again, looking up. I want to meet strong guys. I want to see what they can do. And I want to see if I can beat them. Curiosity. Zalama mused. Better. But still passive. You are a tourist in your own life. Zalama closed his hand, extinguishing the light. You have a hole in your soul, Saiyan. You fill it with battle because you do not know what else to put there. Until you find the source, the singular truth that defines your existence, you will never generate enough willpower to leave this realm. You will burn out. Goku clenched his fists. I'm not empty. Prove it, Zalama challenged. Rebuild your energy. Right now, without drawing from your body. Without drawing from the atmosphere. Draw from your source. Goku closed his eyes. He stood there in the white void, searching. He looked past the desire to win. He looked past the fear of losing. He looked past the faces of his friends, Krillin, Vegeta, Gohan. They were motivations, yes, but they were external. What was his truth? He remembered being a boy in the woods. He remembered the thrill of catching a giant fish. He remembered the first time he realized the world was bigger than Mount Paozu. He didn't fight to destroy. He didn't even really fight to save, though he would die for his friends. He fought because he loved the struggle. He loved the friction of existence. He loved the moment when cannot became can. It wasn't about dominance. It was about growth. I am, Goku whispered. The white void rippled. I am the one who changes, he said louder. He wasn't a hero. He wasn't a villain. He was the catalyst. He was the thing that forced the universe to evolve. When he fought Frieza, Frieza had to evolve or die. When he fought Jiren, Jiren had to break his own trauma. Goku was the engine of evolution. I am the limit breaker, Goku shouted, his voice cracking. Not just for me, for everyone. I fight to show that walls are just doors. Snap. Something inside him unlocked. It wasn't a physical gate like the 8 gates, or a transformation. It was a conceptual lock. A spark ignited in his chest. It wasn't the blue of God Ki. It wasn't the yellow of Super Saiyan. It wasn't the silver of angels. It was a deep, resonant orange, the color of the Dragon Balls, the color of a wish. Energy flooded his system, but it didn't come from his muscles. It poured out of his conviction. The white void around him began to tremble. The air twisted. Goku opened his eyes. They were no longer black. They were glowing with a fierce amber light, and his pupils were vertical slits. Zalama smiled, a true, terrifying, predatory smile. There it is, the dragon god whispered. The heartbeat of the dragon. The amber light did not burn, it weighed. Goku looked down at his hands. The aura surrounding him wasn't the frantic, jagged flame of Super Saiyan, nor the ethereal vapor of Ultra Instinct. It was thick, viscous, and slow-moving, like liquid gold poured over a mountain. It clung to his skin, heavy with the gravity of his own conviction. When he clenched his fist, the white void around him didn't just shake, it creased. Thin spiderweb fractures appeared in the empty air, dark lines where the fabric of the dimension was struggling to contain the density of his presence. Careful, Zalama warned, drifting backward to give the Saiyan space. You are no longer projecting energy. You are projecting reality. If you lose focus now, you will not just explode. You will overwrite your own existence. Goku took a breath, and the amber aura pulsed, expanding and contracting like a second pair of lungs. It feels solid, he marveled. It doesn't feel like I'm draining energy. It feels like I'm getting heavier. Because you are, Zalama said. Willpower has mass. You have tapped into the dragon's vein, the same source that allows Purunga to restore a moon or Shenron to resurrect the dead. You are currently a walking wish. The dragon god pointed a clawed finger at the empty space in front of Goku. But a wish without form is chaos. You must learn to shape it. You say you are the limit breaker. Then show me. Manifest a tool. Do not simply punch the air. Create something that extends your will. Goku frowned, the vertical slits of his eyes narrowing. Create something? He had never created anything in his life. He broke limits. He broke bones. He broke plateaus. Construction was for Bulma. Focus, Zalama commanded, his voice sharp. Visualize it. Not with your eyes, but with your gut. What do you need? What is the extension of your soul? Goku closed his eyes again. He reached into the amber fire burning in his chest. He didn't need a sword like Trunks. He didn't need a gun. He needed something that connected him to his roots, something that reminded him of the joy of the climb. He remembered a red pole. He remembered a gift from his grandfather. He remembered the feeling of connecting the earth to the moon. Extend, Goku thought. Reach. He thrust his right hand out, fingers curled as if gripping a shaft. The amber aura swirled, spiraling down his arm, condensing into a tight, spinning vortex in his palm. The sound was deafening, a high-pitched whine like a jet engine spinning up. The air resisted. The void fought back. But Goku held the image in his mind with ironclad stubbornness. I said, extend! Crack-boom! A shockwave of golden light blasted outward, blowing Zalama's robes back. In Goku's hand, the light solidified. It elongated, stretching out 6 feet in both directions, before snapping into a solid form. The light faded, revealing a staff, but it wasn't the red wood of the Nyoi bow. It was made of pure, condensed amber energy, humming with a low, dangerous frequency. Etched along its surface were not wood grains, but ancient, glowing runes, the language of the dragons. Goku twirled it. It was heavy, impossibly heavy, but it moved with perfect balance. He swung it, stopping the tip an inch from the white floor. The air screamed as the weapon sliced through it. The power pole, Goku whispered, a grin spreading across his face, a grin that looked sharper, wilder than his usual goofy smile. But it feels alive. It is, Zalama said, observing the weapon with approval. You have forged a construct of pure intent. That staff is not made of matter. It is made of the command to reach. It will stretch as far as your will can travel. It will strike as hard as your conviction allows. Zalama lowered himself to the floor, standing eye to level with the transformed Saiyan. You have found your source. You have forged your tool. But you are still mortal, Son Goku. Your body is still flesh and blood, and the power you are holding, Zalama gestured to the humming staff, is the power of a god. The dragon god's expression turned grim. Do you know what happens when a mortal vessel tries to contain the blood of a dragon? Goku stopped twirling the staff, resting it on his shoulder. The amber aura flickered. I guess I'm about to find out. The vessel cracks. Zalama said softly, the final test is not about learning a technique. It is about survival. To master this power, you must face the one being who knows your weaknesses better than anyone else. Zalama raised his hand, and the white void began to darken. The serenity vanished, replaced by a cold, metallic floor and a sky filled with storm clouds. Prepare yourself, Limit Breaker, Zalama announced, his voice booming like thunder. Your final opponent is here. From the shadows of the storm, a figure stepped forward. It wore a battered orange gi. It had messy black hair, but its eyes were silver, and its expression was perfectly, terrifyingly empty. Goku tightened his grip on the amber staff. He was staring at himself. He was staring at the Goku of the Tournament of Power, the Goku who had mastered Ultra Instinct. To ascend, Zalama whispered, fading into the background. You must kill your past perfection. The silence of the silver eyes was louder than the thunder rolling overhead. Goku stood 20 paces away from his own reflection. The entity, the shadow of Ultra Instinct, stood with a posture so relaxed it seemed to be hanging from invisible strings. Its hair flowed upward in a rhythmic, watery motion, glowing with that familiar, heartbreakingly beautiful silver light. It was the definition of martial perfection. It was the fighter Goku had spent years trying to become. A being of pure reaction, devoid of doubt, hesitation, or thought. I never realized how scary I looked, Goku muttered, gripping the amber energy staff tighter. The weight of his new conviction anchored him to the ground, while the shadow seemed to float just millimeters above it. Zalama's voice drifted down from the storm clouds. That is not you. That is the mechanism of you. That is the body moving without the burden of the soul. It is the perfect soldier. Can the architect defeat the soldier? Goku didn't answer. He exhaled, a heavy cloud of amber steam escaping his lips. He moved. It wasn't the instant transmission of the past. He didn't teleport. He lunged, the ground beneath him cratering under the sheer mass of his presence. He swung the energy staff, the dragon pole, in a horizontal arc, aiming to take the shadow's head off. The weapon moved with the force of a collapsing star, tearing the air with a shriek of displaced reality. The shadow didn't blink. It simply ceased to be in the path of the swing. It ducked a movement so minimal, so efficient, it looked like a glitch in the video. The staff passed harmlessly through the space where the shadow's neck had been a nanosecond prior. Before Goku could arrest the momentum of his swing, the shadow stepped inside his guard. Bam! A silver fist buried itself in Goku's gut. The impact was precise, surgical. It didn't send him flying. It shut down his diaphragm. Goku choked, his eyes bulging. The shadow flowed around him like smoke, landing 3 more strikes, kidney, temple, solar plexus, before Goku could even register the pain. Goku stumbled back, coughing up bile. The amber aura around him flickered, unstable. Fast. Goku wheezed, wiping his mouth. Too fast. It is not fast, Zalama corrected. It is immediate. You are winding up. You are thinking, I will hit him. By the time you have formulated the intent, the shadow has already moved. Ultra Instinct reads the tension in your muscles before they fire. You cannot outspeed a reflection, Goku. Goku gritted his teeth. He knew this. He knew the weakness because he had used it against Jiren. If you think, you lose. But he couldn't stop thinking. Zalama had told him to mean it, to use willpower. Willpower required intent. Intent required thought. This is a paradox, Goku realized, frustration bubbling up. To use the dragon power, I have to wish for the hit. But if I wish for it, the angel power sees it coming. The shadow walked forward. It didn't rush. It had no ego to satisfy. It simply identified a threat and moved to dismantle it. It raised a hand, a sphere of silver energy condensing in its palm, a god Kamehameha, stripped of emotion, refined to pure destruction. If I can't hit him, Goku muttered, watching the sphere grow. He looked at the dragon pole in his hand. He looked at the floor. Then I won't aim at him. Goku roared, flaring his amber aura. But instead of attacking the shadow, he slammed the staff vertically into the ground. Crack! He poured his desire, not the desire to kill, but the desire to claim into the floor. The amber light exploded downward, spreading through the metallic plates like veins of lava. This space is mine! The ground erupted. Massive pillars of amber energy shot up from the floor, not random debris, but jagged, intentional spikes of solidified will. They weren't aimed at the shadow, they were aimed at the environment. The shadow, sensing the shift in the terrain, blurred, weaving through the erupting spikes with fluid grace. It was perfect. It dodged one, flipped over another, and slid under a third. But the arena was shrinking. Goku wasn't trying to hit the shadow. He was taking away the empty space it needed to flow. He was filling the room with his own existence. You can dodge a punch, Goku yelled, ripping the staff from the ground and spinning it, creating a vortex of heavy gravity. But you can't dodge the world. The shadow paused for a fraction of a second, its foot finding no purchase on the trembling, glowing floor. In that microsecond of hesitation, Goku didn't swing. He expanded. He threw his arms out, and the amber aura exploded outward in a sphere of concussive force. It wasn't a ki blast. It was a domain expansion of pure pressure. The shadow was caught. It couldn't dodge an omnidirectional wave. It crossed its arms to block. Boom! The silver figure was blasted backward, skidding across the chaotic terrain. It dug its heels in, carving glowing furrows into the metal, its perfect gi finally ruffled, a scuff mark on its arm. Goku panted, sweat dripping down his nose. He had touched it. He had forced it to block. I see. Goku grinned, though his body was screaming in pain. You react to attacks, but you don't know what to do with a natural disaster. Zalama's laughter rumbled in the clouds. Yes, the angel flows around the rock. The dragon becomes the earthquake. But be warned, Limit Breaker. The shadow learns. As if on cue, the silver figure stood up straight. The silver aura around it changed. It sharpened. The shadow's eyes narrowed. It wasn't just reacting anymore. It was escalating. The shadow dropped into a stance. Goku had never used a stance that radiated pure, unadulterated killing intent. It was mimicking Goku's own evolution. Round 2, Goku whispered, dissolving the staff and raising his bare fists. The amber scales of energy on his knuckles hardened. Let's see whose will is stronger, my hunger or my habit. The air screamed. The shadow moved with a velocity that defied physics, becoming a blurring ribbon of silver light. It struck from everywhere at once, a kick to the neck, a chop to the throat, a knee to the spine. Goku's vision fractured, unable to track the sheer volume of attacks. But Goku did not try to dodge. He stood his ground, planting his feet deep into the trembling metal floor. He wrapped the amber aura around himself tight, compressing it until it formed a shimmering, translucent skin over his body, a spiritual armor of scales. I am a mountain, Goku told himself, forcing the conviction into his bones. I am the anchor. Boom! Boom! Crack! The shadow's blows rained down, each one carrying the force to shatter a moon. The silver fist slammed into Goku's amber guard, sending shockwaves rippling through his skeleton. Pain flared sharp and electric, but Goku refused to move. He refused to yield even an inch of ground. You are hitting a wall. Goku roared, blood spraying from his lips as a silver fist buried itself in his ribs. He grunted, absorbing the kinetic energy, and pushed back with his will. And walls don't move. The shadow paused, its silver eyes widening almost imperceptibly. For the first time, its attacks were not passing through, they were being stopped. The perfect defense of Ultra Instinct relied on the opponent overextending, on finding the gap in the rhythm. But Goku had no rhythm. He was just a solid, immovable object. Now. Goku dropped his guard. It was madness. To drop defense against Ultra Instinct was suicide. The shadow saw the opening immediately. It flowed like water, aiming a lethal, heart-stopping palm strike directly at Goku's exposed chest. This was the trap. Goku didn't try to block the hand. He didn't try to dodge. He focused his entire existence on a single point in space. The air directly in front of his chest. Freeze! He didn't speak the word. He imposed it. The amber aura surged. Not outward, but inward. The gravity around Goku's chest multiplied by 10,000 in a microsecond. The air turned into a solid block of pressure. The shadow's hand hit the invisible barrier of gravity inches from Goku's heart. It stopped dead. The momentum arrested instantly. The silver avatar jerked forward, its balance broken by the sudden, impossible deceleration. Gotcha, Goku whispered. His hand shot out, not fast, but inevitable. He grabbed the shadow's wrist. The shadow tried to phase out, to slip away, to use the fluidity of angels. But Goku's grip was not just muscle, it was a shackle of intent. You are not going anywhere. The command locked the shadow in place. You're perfect, Goku said, his voice low, vibrating with the growl of a beast waking up. You don't make mistakes. You don't waste energy. You are the ultimate fighter. Goku pulled the shadow closer, their faces inches apart. The amber light in Goku's eyes burned away the white sclera, leaving only gold and vertical pupils. But you're hollow. Goku pulled his right arm back. The amber energy didn't just coat his fist, it devoured it. The space around his knuckles warped, twisting into a spiraling vortex of orange light that looked like the mouth of a dragon. The sound was terrifying. A deep, guttural roar that seemed to come from the center of the earth. This wasn't a Kamehameha! This wasn't a dragon fist! This was something older! I don't wish to hit you! Goku growled, the energy screaming as it reached critical mass. I wish for you to be gone! He thrust his fist forward. The shadow tried to raise a block, its silver eyes flashing with panic. It didn't matter! The Dragon God fist! The impact was silent. For a heartbeat, the universe held its breath. Then, reality corrected itself. The force of the punch didn't travel through the shadow's body. It traveled through the concept of the shadow. The silver aura shattered like stained glass. The perfect defense disintegrated. The wish for destruction overrode the instinct for survival. BWAA! Aim! A beam of golden light, shaped like a roaring dragon, erupted from Goku's fist, punching clean through the shadow and extending into the infinite horizon of the dimension. The storm clouds above were blown apart, leaving a perfectly circular hole in the sky. The shadow didn't fly backward. It simply dissolved. The silver light flaked away, turning into harmless sparks that vanished into the golden torrent. Goku held the pose, his fist extended, smoke rising from his knuckles. The golden dragon beam faded slowly, leaving a trench of molten metal carved into the floor that stretched for miles. He stood alone in the silence. His breath came in ragged gasps. The amber scales on his skin faded, retreating back into his soul. His eyes returned to black, though a faint golden ring remained around the iris. "I did it!" Goku whispered, looking at his trembling hand. It felt numb. It felt terrifying. He hadn't just punched an opponent. He felt like he had punched a hole in the logic of the fight. Slow clapping echoed from the void. Zalama descended from the clearing sky. He looked at the trench, then at the spot where the shadow had stood, and finally at Goku. "You destroyed perfection," Zalama said, his voice tinged with a solemn respect. "You traded the safety of the angel for the authority of the dragon. You have passed the test, Son Goku." Goku slumped, sitting down hard on the metal floor. He laughed, a tired, wheezing sound. Man, that was rough. I missed the silver hair already. It was way easier on the stamina. "Easier is for mortals," Zalama said, landing softly. "You are ready to leave." The scenery shifted one last time. The metal floor, the storm, the archive, it all melted away. They were back in the original void, the place of gold and obsidian where they had first met. Zalama stood over Goku, his expression unreadable. "You have forged the willpower. You have awakened the Dragon God Fist. You are stronger now, in a way that Beerus and Whis cannot teach." Zalama leaned in close, his golden eyes narrowing. "But every wish has a price, Son Goku. You know this." The Dragon Balls turned to stone after use. "Equilibrium must be maintained." Goku looked up, the smile fading from his face. "Price! You have learned to channel the power of the dragon," Zalama said. "But a dragon cannot serve two masters. You cannot be both the petitioner and the grantor." The dragon god extended his hand. "If you take this power back to your universe, if you keep this limit breaker state, you will never be able to use the Dragon Balls again." Goku froze. "What? Shenron? Porunga? The Super Dragon Balls. They will no longer hear you," Zalama explained coldly. "Your soul is now too loud. To them, you are no longer a mortal asking for a favor. You are a rival frequency. If you speak to them, they will shatter." Zalama offered a choice. Option A. I wipe your memory. You return to your world as you were. You keep your Ultra Instinct. You keep your Dragon Balls. You keep your safety. Option B. You keep this power. You become the dragon in human form. You gain the strength to protect your universe with your own hands, without shortcuts, without resurrections, but you can never wish again. The silence stretched out, heavier than any gravity. Goku stood up slowly. He looked at his hands, the hands that had carried the hopes of the universe so many times, the hands that had gathered the Dragon Balls since he was a little boy with a tail. He thought of Bulma. He thought of the radar. He thought of the thrill of the hunt. Then he thought of the shadow. He thought of the emptiness of perfection. He thought of the responsibility of being the one who breaks the limits. Goku looked Zalama in the eye. "I don't need wishes," Goku said, a small, confident smile returning to his face. "I've got my own fists." Zalama smiled, a genuine, wide smile that revealed rows of razor-sharp teeth. "Then go, Son Goku, and let the cosmos hear you roar." The universe did not announce his return with thunder. There was no crack in the sky, no beam of light descending from the heavens. One moment, the grassy clearing on Beerus planet was empty, save for the swaying of the alien trees in the breeze. The next moment, Son Goku was simply there. He stood in the center of the clearing, his orange gi torn at the shoulders, his boots scuffed with dust that didn't belong to this dimension. He wasn't powering up. He wasn't holding a stance. He was just standing, breathing deeply, tasting the air that smelled of fresh water and grilled fish, but the air around him felt wrong. Vegeta, who had been meditating on a floating rock 100 yards away, opened his eyes. The Prince of Saiyans didn't just sense ki. He sensed a disturbance in the gravity of the planet. It felt as if a second moon had suddenly materialized in the garden. Kakarot, Vegeta whispered, dropping from his perch and landing softly on the grass. Whis, who was enjoying a cup of tea by the lake, paused mid-sip. The angel's staff, usually dormant, let out a faint, high-pitched hum, a warning vibration. Whis set the tea down, his playful expression vanishing for the first time in a decade. "Oh my," Whis murmured. "He smells like old parchment." Goku rolled his shoulders, hearing the satisfying pop of his joints. The crushing weight of the Dragon Realm was gone, and in the standard gravity of the mortal universe, he felt weightless. He felt like he could jump and accidentally leave the galaxy. "Oi, Kakarot!" Vegeta stomped across the clearing, his brow furrowed in confusion and irritation. "Where the hell have you been? You vanished in the middle of sparring 3 hours ago." "Whis couldn't track you. I couldn't sense you. Did you instant transmission to another universe to skip training?" Goku turned slowly. Vegeta stopped dead in his tracks. It was Goku. The face was the same. The hair was the same messy black mop. But the eyes! Goku's eyes were black, but deep within the iris there was a faint golden ring, a halo of predatory light. And his presence, it wasn't the bubbling, explosive pressure of a Super Saiyan. It was a dense, suffocating heaviness. It felt ancient. "Hey, Vegeta," Goku said. His voice was calmer, deeper. It lacked the usual high-pitched bounce. "Sorry about that. Had a meeting." "A meeting," Vegeta scoffed, though he didn't step any closer. His instincts were screaming at him to keep his distance, the same instincts that warned him when Beerus was about to sneeze. "With who? You feel weird. You feel heavy." "I learned something new," Goku said simply. He looked at his hands, clenching and unclenching them. "You want to see?" Vegeta's pride flared, overriding his caution. He scoffed, crossing his arms. "Don't get cocky. You probably just unlocked another hair color. What is it this time? Platinum? Rainbow? No color," Goku said. "Just me." Vegeta narrowed his eyes. "Fine. Show me." The prince didn't hold back. He shouted, exploding instantly into Super Saiyan Blue Evolved. His aura roared like a jet engine, the royal blue flame tearing up the grass and sending shockwaves across the lake. He launched himself at Goku, a blur of god-tier speed, aiming a punch that would have shattered a mountain range. Goku didn't transform. He didn't raise his arms to block. He just looked at Vegeta. "Stop." He didn't say the word. He projected it. The air between them turned into solid amber glass. Vegeta's fist slammed into an invisible barrier 3 inches from Goku's nose. Crack! The sound was deafening, like lightning striking a bell. The shockwave blew the trees backward, but Goku didn't move a millimeter. His hair didn't even ruffle. Vegeta's eyes widened in shock. He pushed, veins popping on his forehead, pouring every ounce of his destroyer energy into the punch. "What is this?" "It's not ki, Vegeta," Goku said softly. Goku took a step forward. The barrier moved with him, pushing Vegeta back. Goku took another step. Vegeta, despite his power, slid backward, his boots carving deep trenches into the ground. He couldn't advance. He was fighting a fundamental law of physics that Goku had just rewritten. "I am not fighting you," Goku explained, his eyes glowing with that terrifying golden slit. "I'm just deciding that you can't hit me." Goku raised his hand, placing his palm flat against the invisible wall. Push. He didn't flick his wrist. He didn't use a ki blast. He simply expanded his will. Boom! The invisible barrier exploded outward. Vegeta was launched across the horizon, skipping over the lake like a stone, before crashing into the side of Beerus Castle. The impact shook the entire planetoid. Goku lowered his hand. The amber shimmer faded. My, a voice chimed from behind him. Goku turned to see Whis floating there, looking at him with a mixture of fascination and something that looked very much like sadness. You have stepped off the path of the angels, Goku, Whis said quietly. That was not Ultra Instinct. That was authority. You have been to the Dragon Realm, haven't you? Goku scratched the back of his head, a ghost of his old grin returning. Yeah, met a guy named Zalama. He, broke my silver form. Said I was borrowing too much. Beerus, awakened by the crash, floated down from his tower, looking groggy and furious. Who dares disturb my... He stopped. He looked at Goku. The god of destruction's ears pinned back. He sniffed the air. That scent, Beerus whispered, his eyes widening. That's not mortal ki. That's creation energy. Why do you smell like the Super Dragon Balls? It's a long story, Lord Beerus, Goku said, his expression sobering. But I think I'm done with training for a while. I need to go back to Earth. Go! Vegeta flew back from the ruins of the castle, dusting debris off his armor. He looked bruised, but mostly his ego was dented. You rewrite reality with a wave of your hand and you want to leave? We haven't even. I have to check something, Goku interrupted, his voice serious. Zalama told me there was a price. I need to see if it's true. Earth was peaceful. The sky was a brilliant, uninterrupted blue, and the birds were singing in the forests of Mount Paozu. It was the kind of day Goku used to take for granted, a day worth fighting for, but rarely a day he spent just watching. He landed in front of his small house. Chi-Chi was in the garden, hanging laundry. Goten was likely at school. Goku didn't go inside. He walked past the house, past the fields, deep into the woods, to a small, hidden cave, where he kept a specific metal box. He opened the rusted lid. Inside, resting on a velvet cushion, was the 4-star Dragon Ball. It sat there, orange and glossy, the 4 red stars suspended in the translucent resin. It looked perfectly normal. It felt perfectly normal. Hey, Grandpa, Goku whispered, picking it up. He felt nothing. Usually, when he held a Dragon Ball, there was a faint, rhythmic hum, a resonance that sang to his Saiyan blood. But now, the ball felt cold. It felt like a piece of glass. It felt dead. Zalama wasn't lying, Goku murmured, a heavy knot forming in his stomach. He sat down on a rock outside the cave, tossing the ball gently in his hand. He had made the choice. He had chosen the power to protect the universe with his own hands over the safety net of the wishes. But feeling the silence of the ball, it hit him harder than he expected. No more revivals, he said to the trees. No more fixing planets. No more asking Shenron to clean up the mess. If Frieza came back and blew up the Earth, it would stay blown up. If Krillin died, he would stay dead. The stakes were real now. The game was over. Goku. He looked up. Bulma was standing there, her Capsule Corp jet parked in the clearing nearby. She was holding the Dragon radar. She looked confused. I saw a huge energy spike on the satellite, so I flew over, Bulma said, walking toward him. She looked at the radar in her hand, shaking it. This thing is broken. It says the 4-star ball is right here, but the signal is static. It's like it's jamming itself. She looked at Goku, noticing the strange calmness in his posture, the faint golden ring in his eyes. Goku? Are you okay? You look different. Goku stood up, clutching the 4-star ball. Hey, Bulma, can I ask you something? Sure, she said, lowering the radar. If we couldn't use the Dragon Balls ever again, would we be okay? Bulma blinked. She looked at the ball in his hand, then back at his face. She had known him since she was 16. She knew every expression he had. She saw the weight behind the question. She saw the finality in his eyes. She didn't ask why. She didn't ask what happened. She smiled a soft, knowing smile that wrinkled the corners of her eyes. We didn't have them when we fought the Saiyans the first time, she said. We didn't have them on Namek until the very end. We didn't use them to beat Cell. She walked over and put a hand on his shoulder. The Dragon Balls gave us hope, Goku, but they didn't save the world. You did. Goku looked at her, and the tension in his shoulders finally broke. He let out a breath he felt like he had been holding since he met Zalama. Yeah. Goku smiled. I guess you're right. He looked down at the ball one last time. Goodbye, Grandpa, he whispered. He didn't throw it. He didn't break it. He simply placed it back in the box and closed the lid. Later that evening, Goku sat on the roof of his house, watching the sun dip below the horizon. The sky was painting itself in shades of purple and gold. Vegeta landed silently next to him. He didn't say anything for a long time. He just stood there, arms crossed, looking at the sunset. So, Vegeta finally grunted. No more wishes. Whis told you, Goku asked, not looking away from the sun. He suspected, Vegeta said. He said your soul is vibrating at a frequency that cancels out the dragons. You've become a singularity. Vegeta sat down next to him, something he rarely did. It means if we screw up, Kakarot. That's it. There's no reset button. I know, Goku said. It means we have to be perfect, Vegeta said, his voice tightening. No, Goku corrected him, turning to look at his rival. The golden slits in his eyes caught the last light of the sun. It means we have to be enough. Goku raised his fist. It wasn't glowing. It wasn't shaking. It was just a fist. I'm not going to rely on gods anymore, Vegeta. I'm not going to rely on dragons. I'm going to rely on this. Vegeta looked at the fist. He snorted, a smirk tugging at his lips. He raised his own fist and bumped it against Goku's. Then don't die, you idiot, Vegeta said, because I'm not carrying your corpse home. Deal? Goku laughed. As the sun vanished and the stars came out, Goku looked up. He imagined he could see a faint, golden constellation in the shape of a dragon winding its way through the darkness. He wasn't a Super Saiyan god anymore. He wasn't an Ultra Instinct user. He was Son Goku, the mortal who touched the infinite and decided that being mortal was enough. And somewhere, deep in the void between universes, Zalama smiled, closed his golden eyes, and went back to sleep, dreaming of the next limit to be broken.